All right, hey, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, they
All
say
right.
yes.
Hi, everyone. So it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm sorry I'm not there with you physically like I have been previously. I am enjoying a little bit of time here in Europe and doing a few classes, so nice to be with you here virtually. So what we have in mind for just this short period, this next 25 minutes or so, is a little presentation about Scrum Master and what do Scrum Masters do and what do they not do. So I hope you'll enjoy that, and we will have a couple interactive points in it. So be expecting that. So let's bring up the let's try to bring up the presentation here.
So how many are already Scrum Masters? Okay, pretty good. So Steve is around 75% of people are already Scrum Masters.
Awesome. Okay. And how's my screen coming across?
Can you see it, guys? Yeah, awesome. They can see it.
All right, great. So this is me, and if anybody likes to connect here, always happy to do that. I am based normally out of the U.S., but a pretty big traveler these days, so I typically get to India at least a couple times a year. Next trip I believe is scheduled for September. So let's dive right into this idea of what is a Scrum Master anyway. In particular, the term is just a little confusing, isn't it? Does it mean the Scrum Master, or in some sense, master of the team?
Can you put headset, Steve?
Sorry, I probably moved something there. How's that now?
Yeah, that's good.
Sorry. So, do you believe that as Scrum Master you are in some sense, master of the team?
Oh yes. Yes.
No, Scrum Master does not mean the master of the team. It means the master of the Scrum processes. He knows the processes well.
Excellent. Yeah. It actually comes from a very old term, and this is just sort of a little piece of Agilist trivia, I guess. A term, webmaster, and so this is a 20-year-old term, but still occasionally used. But it really meant a master of web technologies, and so they adopted the same concept with the term Scrum Master. So Scrum Masters are becoming masters of Scrum. And so that's one of the, if you really have any authority at all, it only comes from your deep knowledge of Scrum. So the interesting thing about this role is how multifaceted it is. It requires a lot of different skills, and you have different styles and things at different times. So you're obviously supposed to be a Scrum Master. We recommend this model called servant leadership, which is pretty challenging. And then at various times, you'll find that you are a coach, you are a facilitator, you are a trainer occasionally, you are a protector of the team, you are a remover of impediments, you're a supporter of the product owner and the dev team, and interestingly, perhaps most interestingly, you are an organizational change agent. So we'll talk about what the Scrum Guide has to say about that. So we say that you lead by influence rather than by authority. Anybody have a thought on why that might actually be important? Why can't we just make you in charge? Wouldn't that make things simpler?
Not by authority. Scrum Master is not by authority. Why? Okay. So Piyush here has something to say.
Okay.
Probably, I think that with authority, normally people tend to fear you. So, as a Scrum Master, if people or team members are fearing you, then they might not open up with you. So, if you are a leader by influence and you can influence them, then that's easy to work with the team.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you. Probably another way of saying the same thing is you're part of the team. You're not somehow above it or in charge of it, and your job is to foster self-organization. And you probably heard that term, but it's actually a little confusing. It means a lot of stuff. And one of the things it means is we're sort of trying to make the team able to operate without us. It's kind of a fascinating thing. We're doing things in a way that make them more and more self-capable and less dependent on us. So very different, say, than our traditional project management role. Now, there's a funny word here, prerogatives. Some of us might think of it as something like rights, but in the latest Scrum Master learning objectives, here are the things that we consider to be rights or your prerogatives as a Scrum Master. You're allowed to ask insightful or powerful questions of anyone in the organization. Obviously your team, but even beyond that. You experiment with new ideas, you challenge the team from time to time, you coach, and you have easy access to not just your team, but to stakeholders and leaders. Right? And imagine this starts to be tricky in some organizations. And you increase transparency, you bring issues into the open. As you're probably aware, that's one of our values, right? Transparency. So we try to just sort of make everything transparent, even when it involves people in positions of power. And as if that's not enough, you ensure that Scrum is understood and enacted in the entire organization. So occasionally we get this question, what is it that Scrum Masters do anyway? Just got a few meetings and what are they doing? There's a fairly subtle job. There's a ton of work to do in the background once you truly understand the Scrum Master role. So, therefore, given what we just described, you have a lot of roles. Are you then the most accountable individual in Scrum? So let me turn that back over to Roy here for giving an opinion.
Does that mean you're the most accountable individual in the Scrum? Yes. So Silky here from Bank of New York.
No, we don't have most accountable for this Scrum. We are here just to coach the team and to facilitate the team how exactly they have to follow the process. Instead of that, how they have to do work or to manage the team. We are just to facilitate the team.
Nicely said.
Okay. Any additions? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Venkat here from Chennai.
We need to make the team self-enabling so they can self-organize.
Okay, so you meant to say that you are accountable to make the team self-organize so that they can get to the goal. Yeah. Okay. So you are not accountable for the goal, but making sure that team should reach their goal. Yeah. Okay. That's what Venkat says. Steve.
Yeah. No, it's actually excellent. I think it's a very subtle thing because our accountabilities are subtle as Scrum Masters. But that is probably one of the best things to point out. Our primary accountability is a really good and improving team. So that's really what we are. But then there is actually this interesting thing about, is there a single rankable method Scrum? And it's a little bit debatable. But what sort of an infamous or famous quote from Ken Schwaber, like one of the two originators of Scrum, that the product owner is actually the single rankable method. Now, this is interesting, and the way I would most easily try to explain it is that we used to think the key thing in any kind of development work was to push the team to get us more content. And now we're fairly sure that that's not quite right. That what we really need to do is figure out how to do only the right content. Of course, the person that has the accountability for that is the product owner. So you are still a very key role here, obviously. In fact, there's these interesting quotes about how important you are that we'll mention. But if you're really not sure what you should be doing all day, I would encourage you to check out this little website, ScrumMasterChecklist.org. It's a former blog article. It's now turned into a website. I believe it was called originally the 42 Jobs of a Great Scrum Master. So it sort of says, here's 42 things you should really be doing as a Scrum Master. So you might check that out.
ScrumMasterChecklist.org. So anybody, product owner in the room? Any product owner in the room? Any objection to that? No objections. Yeah, so Scrum Masters are happy. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So let's just briefly talk about what those roles are then. So you're a facilitator, right? We all probably heard that. But what is facilitation? So here's a very interesting quote from one of the primary trainers of Agile coaches, Lisa Atkins, that in a sense, as a Scrum Master, you're think the facilitation is creating a framework or a container, and then just inviting the team or whatever group we're working with to fill that up with, amazing ideas and approaches and things. So it's sort of like we create the container, the team creates the content. That is one way of understanding facilitation, that we're bringing out the best in other people, but we have a somewhat active role in framing that sometimes. So there's some specific techniques you can use, and some are really simple. We probably know about thumbs up and thumbs down kind of things, so you can always do that. There's a very classic Agile thing called fist of five, that I imagine a number of you have run into, where you hold up some number of fingers, and 5 is total agreement, and 3 usually means we can live with this, and anything less than that indicates we have a kind of a problem on our agreement. So we use that a lot in Agile meetings. Dot voting can be very useful, where you put a bunch of options up on a board and you give people a limited number of little dots or stickers, and they vote against those items. So those can be very useful techniques. And then we want to do things like, and this can be culturally challenging sometimes, foster healthy conflict. Because in some sense, there's always conflict in any human system. And if we don't manage to foster healthy conflict, we can pretty well guarantee we will have problems and dysfunctional conflict. So we really want to make sure people can be open and honest with each other and even have a little bit of conflict. And then probably a more advanced skill for you as a facilitator would be to become an inspiring storyteller. We know for a fact that this is one of the best leadership techniques too, even for tech overall senior like CEOs and things. If they can learn how to be inspiring storytellers, that is a key skill for leadership. So here's another question now for you at your table or people near you. Sometimes, even though we would say as a Scrum Master, you should probably just be a Scrum Master, sometimes the organization asks you to do something else. So here's 2 scenarios. First scenario, you are part of the dev team, meaning you're actually doing work as well as being Scrum Master. Second combination, you're also the product owner. So I'd like to just give you 1 minute there to talk among yourselves and then ask VJ to get some of the opinions back. If you had to pick one, which one of those 2 would you pick?
Okay, maybe form a team, small teams of 3, 4, 5 people, and then discuss about this scenario. First scenario is Scrum Master is also part of the dev team, and another one is Scrum Master is also the product owner. Okay, 1 minute starts now. Stay there discussing.
This is the reality. It is a reality. It's a reality. I mean, you will never. And again, there are 2 opinions. That 2 people will have few opinions on that. But yeah, that's one school of thought.
Yeah, I think we are done with 1 minute. Yeah. So Steve, what do you want me to do? Shall I go and ask them?
Yeah, why don't we see, maybe a show of hands. How many people think the right answer is number 1?
How many people think right answer is number 1?
Okay, we don't think it's a right answer, we think it's a reality. In that context. That was the opinion of the table here.
Ashutosh says, hi Steve, so we discussed this situation number 1 on the table, and 2 things came out. One is that this is a reality in an Indian context, that no one would hire just a Scrum Master. That person essentially would be having a double hat, either a dev team or a QA team with him. The second one was what Saili brought out was that if I'm a part of the development team as a Scrum Master, what's going to happen is my prioritization is going to take a beating. So should I prioritize on the Scrum ceremonies or should I prioritize on my dev tasks? Okay. So that essentially was the opinion on situation 1 on this table. Okay. Maybe we can ask others also. Sure.
Very well said, and I guess maybe I'll restate the question just slightly. which is the least worst possibility here. So does anybody want to vote for one or the other?
Yeah, so Ravindra here, yeah, he has something to say.
So regarding the situation 2, definitely Scrum Master can never be a product owner for sure. But situation 1, on paper, technically, Scrum Master should not be part of the development team. But I have seen projects in which Scrum Master is doing the developments and also playing the role of Scrum Master, but he is not 100% allocated to the user stories. So he has some 30% bandwidth to ensure that Scrum ceremonies are taken place. So that is the reality.
Some typical organizational bureaucratic words coming into picture now. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and we
Shailendra,
cannot
you have
even
to say
have
something.
choices here, right? So I don't mean to be naive about this, but this is an interesting one because there's actually an official position on this from the Scrum Guide and the Scrum Alliance. If you read the Scrum Guide, I strongly suggest you should, probably fairly regularly, the Scrum Guide is clear that situation 1 is possible, that is an allowed combination. Doesn't mean it's necessarily a great idea, but it is an allowed combination. Whereas the Scrum Alliance holds that number 2 is a fundamentally incompatible combination. So that's kind of interesting. It's not exactly like their power positions are, but there is some checks and balances in the system between dev team, product owner, and Scrum Master. So somehow when you do number 2, we seem to lose that check and balance, and sometimes things get out of whack. So we basically don't recognize number 2. And obviously, you'll do what you think is right. But this is kind of the official position of that. So, as a coach, as a Scrum Master, as a coach, what does it mean to coach? This is no official definition here. Here's my definition. So, you're a guide, you're a trusted advisor, but in some sense, trying to work yourself out of a job because you're there really to facilitate other people's thinking and their plans. And we often do that with things like observations. Techniques like mirroring, asking powerful questions. And yet, because we're Agile coaches, we have a bit of an agenda, and occasionally we'll be directive about that if teams get too far out of line or sort of violating, sort of Scrum, the Scrum rules, if you will, then occasionally we'll get directive. So that's how I think of coaching. So who do we coach? Really surprised the dev team, the product owner, but also the whole organization, which is a very high bar. And quite frankly, you probably want some Agile coaches in to help you with that, but if there's nobody there, it's actually your job. Now, this is a kind of a subtle concept, and I think it's an important one for us to understand as Scrum Masters, is Scrum itself does not actually tell us how to do our work. Scrum tries to be the lightest weight framework that it can be and give us just enough guidance to sort of inspect and adapt regularly and to deliver value quickly and have some roles that make all that happen. Then it tells us nothing about the work processes, nothing about how to code, nothing about whether you should use automated testing, whether you should use continuous integration, what should be your definition of done. So the best way to think about this is that as a Scrum Master, you facilitate or in some sense own the Scrum framework for the container. You do not own the work processes. In fact, you would see the work processes as owned by the dev team. So there's this very interesting relationship then that while you sort of coach the team, including occasionally nudging them on work processes, they're actually owned primarily by the dev team. So this mental model of I own the container and I own encouraging the right things to happen, but really the dev team has primary ownership of work processes. I would encourage you to think about that. As far as a method that we strongly recommend for Scrum Masters, especially let's say you're a former project manager or something, will tend to be a little directive. A lot of us tend to be directive, so we also recommend this approach, powerful questions. So you say things like, I noticed the following, what do you guys think we should do? Or I've observed this, you guys think that's something we should worry about? I have this feeling about how the team is right now, what do you think? Shall we try to find out? What's the next improvement we should pursue? This is a great example of the Scrum Master question. The Scrum Guide is very clear that while the dev team owns improving your own process, If they don't, we nudge them. So here's an example of that question. What do you think we should do? What would you like me to do? So these are, again, useful kinds of concepts to try. Try to ask your team things more than tell them things. And finally, maybe the most challenging concept, and maybe particularly culturally challenging in India sometimes, servant leadership. Fascinating dominions here. Gandhi is an excellent example of servant leadership. So here's a definition, or an abbreviated definition from the guy who first defined the term. And I think the key thing here, that last paragraph, is that when we are doing a servant leadership style with the team, it makes the team grow. It makes them become better at what they do and not more dependent on us. So that's the way I would start out thinking about servant leadership. Is that it's sort of like it's not about me, it's about the team. And so we're always trying to make the team more and more able to go without us. I sometimes see a dysfunction here that I call codependent Scrum teams, where the team does great when you're around, and when you leave, they fall apart, and that means you're sort of not doing things right, because they're supposed to become more and more capable. So, based on what we said, this is just kind of a quick shout-out thing, and I'll try to listen here, and maybe BJ will summarize. What are some of the characteristics, ideally, for a Scrum Master?
What are the characteristics a person ideally have in order to be the Scrum Master for a team?
Humbleness.
Okay, Piyush says humbleness. Yeah, okay.
He should be approachable.
Approachable.
Good facilitator, interpersonal skills.
Good facilitator. Okay.
Interpersonal skills.
Good interpersonal skills.
He should listening skills.
Good listening skills.
Emotionally intelligent.
Emotionally intelligent. Okay.
Negotiation skills.
Negotiation skills. Yeah. Negotiation skills.
Ask right questions.
Okay, he says ask right questions.
Coaching skills.
Coaching skills. Have an open mind. That's really great. Yeah. Huh? It's resourceful. Okay. And in an organization, being resourceful is really, really tough job, right? Yeah. Okay.
In nutshell, which we are trying to say, he should be God.
Oh. So Shailendra says he should be God.
But an approachable deity, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Approachable God.
God who listens, basically team.
Yeah. Okay. And approachable God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is tricky stuff. I heard a lot of good ones. I probably didn't hear quite all there myself, but a couple of the ones that I often bring up are things like emotional sensitivity, EQ, some people call that, the ability to kind of read a room or a team and tell what's going on. Even sort of what we almost would call political skill, which is not got a very good connotation, but the ability to get things done in your organization, that'll help you be an impediment remover. So if you can have influence, maybe we would say. And then one of the last ones I tend to think about, and it's more of an interesting long discussion, but the short version is, how do we feel about technical skill? And I know the answer in India is you're probably expected to have it. And yet, in my experience, a little bit of that is very useful, and a lot is a little bit dangerous. Because we're not really supposed to tell the team what to do. And if we're, say, a former tech lead, we're going to be very tempted to tell the team what to do. So I think it's good to have a little bit, but maybe a lot is a little bit harder sometimes. Okay, so here's our last main 2 pages here about, this is something that comes pretty much straight out of the Scrum Guide. So there's a little bit of my opinion in here. Most of this is straight out of the Scrum Guide. So this is a quick true or false thing where I'm going to ask BJ to help me with the room, try to get some consensus on the answer. So is this a Scrum Master function? Helping the development team to create high-value products.
So how many people say true? Raise your hand. Okay, roughly almost 60, 70%. Yeah, I would say 70% of the people are saying yes, it's true.
Okay, and as per the Scrum Guide, that is straight out of the Scrum Guide. That is, in fact, your job. How about owning the processes for getting work done?
Owning the processes for getting the work done. True, please raise your hand. Hardly few.
And basically the answer is no, though it's a subtle thing because the dev team owns the processes of work, and yet we are a coach. So we don't own them, but we do occasionally coach them. How about leading and coaching the whole organization in its Scrum adoption?
Leading and coaching the whole organization in Scrum adoption. True, almost 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Frightening, but true, yes. Planning Scrum implementations within the organization.
Planning Scrum implementation. True, please raise your hand. About 50% planning Scrum implementation within the organization. True or false?
It turns out that is
true. Oh, that's true.
But again, many people don't probably feel empowered enough to do that, but you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
How about this one? Serving as an interface between the product owner and the dev team to help convey information and clarify expectations.
Serving an interface between PO and the dev team. Hardly one or two hands says true. 3 people says true. Out of about 40-50 people. Yeah, 3 people says true.
All right, and generally we're going to say no, you don't. Now, I know there's some dysfunctions that can happen in organizations that will lead you to do this, but we don't like intermediaries in general, right? And Agile, we like people to talk directly to each other, so we don't really like go-betweens. So we don't really want you to necessarily be a go-between. How about causing change that increases the productivity of the Scrum team?
Causing change increases the productivity of the team. About 80% of the people say yes, true.
Smart.
Oh, that's true.
Coordinating between multiple Scrum teams so they can remain focused on their work.
Scrum Masters, maybe? How many people? Yeah, okay, so about 60% of the people say true.
Now this one's not exactly straight out of the Scrum Guide, but my opinion is it is not true.
People are laughing.
We prefer to have the teams coordinate themselves, and this is what, for example, large-scale Scrum classes would teach.
Okay.
We don't really like coordinators or you to serve as a coordinator. We'd rather have team members do their own coordination. That typically gets better. And how about working with other Scrum Masters to increase the effectiveness of Scrum in the organization?
Working with other Scrum Masters. True, how many people? About 90% of the people.
That is in fact
true.
Right? So we got a few more.
Yes.
Ensuring, these are going to get interesting, I think. Ensuring that the goal, scope, and product domain are understood by everyone on the Scrum team.
Goal, scope, and product domain are understood by everyone on the Scrum team. Ensuring that. True or false? Scrum Master's role. About 10% of the people are saying true.
And yet, according to the Scrum Guide, this is part of your job. Now, this is a subtle one because it sounds a little bit like meddling in what the product owner does. Mm-hmm. And so notice the word said ensuring that it happens. It didn't say you did it. So that's another subtlety to watch for. Finding techniques for effective product backlog management.
Finding techniques for effective product backlog management. About 30% of the people, 40% say true.
But again, really sounds to me a bit like meddling, but according to the Scrum Guide, it is true.
True.
Helping the Scrum team understand the need for clear and concise product backlog items.
Helping team for product backlog. Refinement, concising. Okay, about 50% of 40 to 50% of the people are saying true.
Scrum Guide says true. And then running the daily Scrum meeting to optimize team effectiveness.
Everyone says false.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because many of us do this, and yet it's not really our job.
Awesome.
The Scrum Guide is not even require you to be there. So I suspect it's a good idea usually, but as much as possible, I recommend letting the team try to run their own. Ensuring the product owner knows how to arrange the product backlog to maximize value.
Helping product owner to maximize the product. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Almost everyone
Yeah.
says true.
True, and again, you notice the word ensuring, just making sure they know how. So again, you're sort of enabling them, aren't you? And then scheduling meetings and producing charts for the team.
Scheduling meeting and producing charts for the team reports. True? False? True or false? This is what you do every day, right? But is it true according to Scrum Guide? False? Steve, majority says false.
Yeah, and that is correct. Now, I know a lot of us do it, but be careful of being seen as just some kind of an admin assistant for the team, right? You're much more powerful than that. So it doesn't mean you don't help, but don't see you as somehow just like a lightweight assistant or something. And then finally, last one on here, presenting in a sprint review to ensure complete understanding by all those involved.
People say false.
Very good. That's better than most people would say. You have no defined role in the sprint review. So again, probably a really good idea there. All right, good. Very nice job on that. So that's, I see we're really at our time here, so some takeaways. You are a servant, not just to the team, but also the whole organization. You're in the process of at least becoming a master of Scrum, and you have a key role. Here's this quote from Jeff Sutherland: "There's never been a great Scrum team without a great Scrum Master." So if you haven't, gone and read the Scrum Guide recently, you should probably do so. There were some significant changes at the end of 2017, and I have some other recommended reading for you at the end of the slide deck whenever you're interested in downloading that. So do remember that Scrum Master is a journey. Happily, we're working harder now to make that a continuing journey with some advanced Scrum Master classes just now rolling out, and that goes up really good. And then eventually be also a certified Scrum professional, sort of a class and coaching-based model. So this is kind of what's happening now in our training world. So thank you for being here. And sorry I could not be there in person. Feel free to email any other questions or thoughts, and I want to say thank you all very much.
Yeah, guys, any questions? Just last minute, any questions to Steve? I think you are so clear that people do not have a question.
Yeah, undoubtedly that's it. Anyway, it's really good to see you all, and I am seeing you again here now. Stop by sharing this evening. So nice to see you all. Thank you for being here, and I hope maybe sometime soon I'll be here again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Nice talking to you.